Part 83. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 829. The eldest princess, Xiaoxiaoman, watched helplessly as the baby she had covered for half a month, which had lost its smell, fell into Yilin's hands, and she was stunned. Yilin struck quickly, accurately, cruelly, swiftly, and fiercely, but Xiaoxiaoman couldn't react. Then she watched blankly as shock appeared on the young man's face at first, then he frowned, and then, when the young man swung the imperial jade seal and smashed it into the soil, Xiaoxiaoman couldn't hold his breath anymore and cried loudly. Give me the jade seal. My hair. I asked father to get up and kill you. Crying until the end, Xiaoxiaoman was incoherent and even said the words father, get up. Yilin's mood was complicated at the moment. The complicated reason was not because Xiaoxiaoman was crying. But, a legendary item was held in the arms of Princess Dagon for half a month. This is a legendary item. When Yilin touched the dark green jade seal, familiar attributes reappeared in front of her eyes. What Yilin didn't expect was that one of the 7 keys he was looking for suddenly appeared in front of him. After thinking for a moment, Yilin threw the human emperor's seal back into Xiaoxiaoman's hands. He just swung the human emperor's seal and smashed it into the ground, not to despise the Dakian royal family, but to try out the power of this so-called legendary item. Suppressing the country is at his feet, but why can't he suppress it? It seems that it should be related to the restrictions of legendary items. Is it exclusive to the human emperor? If you are not a human emperor, you will not be able to unleash the true power of legendary items. Xiaoxiaoman stopped crying instantly when the human emperor's seal was lost and found. She glared at Yilin fiercely, carefully rewrapped the human emperor's seal, and with a sad look on her face, she picked up the scattered long hair from the ground. That is her youth and consciousness. How dare you just throw it away? The concepts of this era are not that open. The hair and skin of the body are influenced by parents. For them, hair is also a part of the body. If you say to cut off a little bit, it is almost like cutting a nail. But shaving off all the hair is equivalent to amputation of a finger, which is really treasonous. Ordinary families all think this way, let alone the imperial family. Yilin looked at Xiaoxiaoman with tears in her eyes and stubbornly rewrapped the hair on the ground with the human emperor's seal. She felt inexplicably pitiful for this little girl. He patted the unnecessary dust on his body, stood up, and gave a reasonable explanation for Meng Lang's actions just now. Look, you have no strength and only want to rely on others. You can't control anything. You ran away rashly. If you go to King Geni's territory to ask for help, you might be betrayed without even knowing it before you ask for help. Xiaoxiaoman glared at Yilin, hating in his heart but not knowing how to refute. Besides, don't you think your idea is too naive? Yilin said without mercy. You mentioned that the king of Geni's was a powerful figure who was qualified to compete for the throne in the past. Do you really think that he has become a southern barbarian? How can I be grateful if I become a local emperor in this land? Don't forget what a hellish place Nanman was back then. It had a hot climate, swamps everywhere, crops didn't grow, and poisonous insects were rampant. If I were the king of Geni's, as early as 13 years ago, when Dad died, he threw down his burden and rebelled. Hey, if you can endure it until now without having an attack, that's pretty cool. After experiencing this little episode, Xiaoxiaoman followed Yilin down the mountain obediently. Apart from not mentioning Yilin taking her back to Kingdu anymore, she didn't know if she had really figured it out or if she was just angry. In short, Xiaoxiaoman didn't say a word on the way down the mountain, and it was rare to find peace. This is the effect of training. Yilin was secretly proud. Although Xiaoxiaoman stared at his back and felt a little stabbed in his back, it wasn't a big problem. Walking out of the mountains of the Eastern Zhou dynasty, there is a plain. The plains are mostly dotted with scattered fishing villages, and residents here have made a living by fishing on the seashore for generations. The villagers will pickle the uneaten fish into dried fish and make simple coarse sea salt, and then go to the market on the other side of Dongzhou Mountain to exchange for daily needs. There were people coming and going in the fishing village, all of them tanned and honest-minded. Yilin and Xiaoxiaoman, who were obviously not locals, came to ask for directions. They all answered one by one without any delay. While sighing at the simplicity of the people, Yilin quickly determined the direction and rushed to the seaside. With about 4 or 5 days left on the journey, Yilin spent some money to buy a horse in a fishing village near the mountain, and the two of them rode together. Seeing that Yilin only changed one horse instead of two, Xiaoxiaoman pouted and felt unhappy, but he did not dare to say anything and sat down behind the horse obediently. Horses in this era, except for war horses, most civilian horses cannot afford saddles. They are high-end goods that ordinary people cannot afford. Whoever rides a horse knows what it feels like to ride a horse without a saddle. Yilin knew that she couldn't bear it, so she took a blanket and put it under her buttocks, which finally made her feel more comfortable. But Xiaoxiaoman, who was sitting in the back, didn't feel so comfortable anymore. Every time the horse went to a bumpy spot, her thin body was suddenly bumped up high, and then fell heavily. The pain was so painful that Her Royal Highness grinned and stood up. For a moment, it felt so uncomfortable. But she didn't have an attack, she just endured it all the way without talking to the damn Lin Yi. I will not say. Even if I kill you, I won't say anything. Xiaoxiaoman couldn't beat Yilin in terms of strength, but he couldn't lose in terms of integrity, right? She obviously had sex with Yiren. Just like that, walking around. Riding horses in the red dust, traveling from the southern part of Dongsheng China to the East China Sea, in the end only Yilin and Xiaoxiaoman were left walking. Xiaoxiaoman didn't take the initiative to speak, while Yilin shook the reins and would find some topics from time to time to relieve his boredom. Xiaoxiaoman is not as generous as Yilin and does not care about past grudges. No matter what Yilin asked, she turned her head aside and said nothing except secretly crying out in pain. How could she have time to reply to Yilin's bullshit when her ass was about to bloom? Finally, 2 days later, the two of them staggered on their horses and arrived at the beach. Looking from a distance, a mile away, there are several simple bungalows randomly located, with country roads interspersed among them. Yilin was riding on the horse and suddenly frowned. The oncoming salty sea breeze was filled with waves of unpleasant smell of blood. Not to mention Yilin, even Xiaoxiaoman could smell this bloody smell. She was about to give a warning, but when she remembered the agreement she had made with herself that whoever talks to the other party first will lose, she immediately covered her mouth, with a straight face, patted Yilin on the shoulder, and when the other party turned around she pointed to his nose again, using this action to remind Yilin to be careful. Yilin smiled, didn't take it to heart, and continued to move forward. A few hundred steps away from the fishing village, Yilin looked into the distance and saw a graceful beauty standing on the roof, her robes fluttering in the wind, her face as plain as frost, and her murderous aura. At the entrance of the village road, a guest in white brought a table from somewhere and drank tea calmly, showing off his style. It's Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan. Yilin stretched his neck and then retracted it. His hands were itchy after being idle for a few days. Yilin wanted to do something, but she didn't expect it to be them. Yilin suddenly felt a little boring. Yilin actually thought about it halfway through, why they had not been attacked since the people from Tianjian sect appeared. It turned out that the group of desperados had arrived at the East China Sea in advance to wait and wait. Naturally, Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan had anticipated this incident and arrived at the finish line early to clear the obstacles. Sure enough, This is the real world. It is far less bloody than the scenes in classical novels, where you are chased and beaten more and more along the way. Jian Nanchun first saw Yulin but not Master Guye, and accidentally choked on his tea. But when he saw the eldest princess behind Yulin, he finally breathed a sigh of relief. He stepped forward and took advantage of Yulin's dismount to ask, "Why are you the only one left? Where is Master Guye?" When he arrived at Dongzhou Mountain, he took in a precious disciple and returned to Ping'an Temple first. That's it. When Jian Nanchun heard this, he felt better because he had encountered something unexpected. Otherwise, Zen Master Kuya of Heian Temple lost his life because of this matter. Wouldn't that mean that Tianjian sect owes the Buddhist sect a favor? This favor is hard to repay. Not bad, not bad, not bad. Jian Nanchun patted Yulin on the shoulder. He now knew that Yulin had learned little skills by herself, so he did not hesitate to praise her. "Hey, don't forget our promise, senior brother." Yulin squinted her eyes and looked at Jian Nanchun. She spoke in a low voice before, but in the end Yulin deliberately placed the accent on the word senior brother. Jian Nanchun shrank his neck and subconsciously glanced at the roof where his junior sister was standing. When he saw that the other party didn't care about the movement at all, Jian Nanchun straightened his face and coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment. Let everything happen, just let it happen. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 830. In fact, although Chao Rushuan couldn't tell it on the surface, she faintly heard Jian Nanchun and Lin Yi whispering strange words. What a coincidence, what a promise. But she didn't pay attention, she simply felt that this young man was familiar to him. In addition, Chao Rushuan was also very interested in the boy's origin, so he remained silent and watched what happened. Yulin casually asked what happened after that day in Malishan. It turns out that one day later, Jian Nanchun arrived in time to help Chao Rushuan get out of trouble. The old man in black didn't know if he had learned that the operation had failed. After Jian Nanchun arrived, he fled decisively and did not want to fight. They then flew northeast, passing by Perfect and Yulin and others. Dongsheng Shenzhou has a vast territory, and if the route is slightly off, it's thousands of miles away, so it's not surprising to miss it. If you miss it, you will miss it. Jian Nanchun's thoughts echoed those of Yulin. He secretly regretted leaving too quickly and not leaving any positioning techniques on the eldest princess in advance, so he could only choose to believe in Zen Master Kuya and they would arrive in the East China Sea first. Waiting for the eldest princess. Along the way, Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan deliberately spread the news so that the people who were chasing the eldest princess would get wind of it, and they also cleared many obstacles for Yulin and others. There is also an interesting thing to say. On their way to follow Yulin, they were inadvertently led astray by the traces left by Yulin, and were delayed a lot of time. In short, the eldest princess arrived at the coast of the East China Sea safely, and there were no dangers along the way. Jian Nanchun also completed the order of the master, and felt relieved. The killers came to this fishing village in advance, slaughtered all the local residents, and disguised themselves as fishermen, hoping to fish in troubled waters. The two men who killed Jian Nanchun were caught off guard. But Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan easily saw through the killers' tricks, followed their tricks, and killed them back. The two killings were so close in time that the smell of blood here was so strong. Listening to Jian Nanchun's narration, Yulin secretly lamented that in this world, human life is despicable, like an ant, worthless. People who have no strength will die as soon as they want, a humble and worthless death. After sighing with emotion, a few people took a short rest and prepared to go to Fairy Mountain. There is a high cliff on the edge of the fishing village, which is tens of meters high from the sea. The waves are crashing, and the white roar is like a dragon. The tide rises and recedes, rolling and relaxing at times. The sea view is quite spectacular. The four of them stood on the edge of the cliff, looking at Rushuan like magic. With a flick of his wrist, an ancient flute as pure as white jade appeared in his slender fingers. Chao Rushuan tilted his head slightly, facing the sea, his eyes slightly closed, and played the ancient flute. I saw a beautiful lady in plain clothes, with a snow-white gooseneck, a figure that was out of the world, and her clothes were floating. Jian Ruchun looked at the scene of the beauty playing the flute infatuatedly, and looked at the snow-white skin exposed from the skirt of the junior sister's clothes, and couldn't help but be stunned for a moment. Two words came out over and over in his mind: good flute. Good flute. What a flute. Ahem, pay attention to your appearance. On the side, Yilin couldn't help but poke Jian Nanchun's waist with her elbow, reminding him not to be too aggressive. Jian Nanchun came back to his senses and blushed. He wanted to refute, but he didn't know how to refute. As for the eldest princess standing next to Yilin, a look of admiration first appeared on her face during the sound of the flute, but soon, her eyes became confused, and she could not help but subconsciously hug the brocade bundle in her arms tightly. It seemed that only her arms were only the treasures inside can bring her a slight sense of security. Yilin glanced at Xia Xiaoman. In fact, he felt that it was not easy for Xia Xiaoman. The good-natured Princess Dakian was forced to live outside her home for various reasons. Even the legendary Fairy Mountain was just an unknown place to her. It is conceivable that he was worried about where to go and felt uneasy. They come, the security. Yilin comforted Xia Xiaoman in a low voice. When Xia Xiaoman heard this, he couldn't help but rolled his eyes and thought to himself, if you hadn't scared this princess, I would have gone back to Qingdu without any care. Why did I come here? But even though she was thinking this in her heart, her body was honest. The eldest princess's slightly curled shoulders stretched a little and relaxed a little. In fact, Yilin had selfish motives in comforting Xia Xiaoman. Whether Xia Xiaoman went to the Immortal Mountain or entered the Tianjian sect before had nothing to do with Yilin. Now, the relationship is great. The human emperor's seal she held in her arms was one of Yilin's main missions, one of the 7 keys. It would be unsightly to let Xia Xiaoman run away and cause trouble out of thin air. Therefore, Yilin comforted Xia Xiaoman and asked her to stay in Tianjian section. Yilin also wanted to keep the human emperor's seal with her. As for grabbing it now? Is it useful to grab it now? If you put it on Xia Xiaoman, sooner or later it won't be yours. Not much difference. When several people had different thoughts, Chao Rushuan stopped playing and looked at the sea with a calm face, as if he could see through the sea fog and reach the fairy mountain thousands of miles away. Jian Nanchun suddenly remembered something, lowered his head and warned carefully, you two, no matter what you see or hear later, don't talk or ask too much, otherwise, you will be responsible for the consequences. Don't roll your eyes around, say it's you. When Jian Nanchun saw that the boy named Lin was absent-minded, he wanted to take out his sword, stab him and teach him a lesson. How come this face doesn't look surprising at first glance, but the more I look at it, the more hateful it becomes. I can hardly hold it in anymore. In the distance, after Chao Rushuan's whistle stopped, as if in response, there were waves of weird cries. At first, the cry seemed to come from the sky, and then listened carefully, it seemed to come from under the feet. Finally, it became a sound from all directions, like the sound of wind, like crying, like complaining, whining, low and melodious. Yilin tried to distinguish it for a while, but couldn't tell what the strange sound was coming from. Shhh. Jian Nanchun looked solemn and raised his index finger to signal silence. Following the strange cry, a small black spot appeared in the fog. The black spot approached the edge of the cliff from far to near at an extremely fast speed. Yilin squinted her eyes and saw that the dot was a child in a green shirt. The child's long hair was casually let down, smooth and silky. The black hair was mixed with white hair. In the age when he should have been young and ignorant, but because of those few strands of white hair, the child had an old-fashioned air about him. When Yilin's eyes moved downward, she realized that the child coming from the fog in the distance was not stepping on the water. Under his feet, there was an endless shadow, like a moving land. As the waves undulated and the sea surface sank, a corner of the shadow under the child's feet was exposed, but it was a brown smooth layer, and it was unknown what kind of giant magic weapon it was. Walk. Chao Rushuan didn't say much. He simply lifted the eldest princess and gently swept it into the air, landing next to the little boy. Similarly, Jian Nanshan thought that Yilin did not understand the art of controlling the air, so he also carried Yilin and landed on the giant magic weapon. As soon as he landed on the ground, Chao Rushuan bowed to the child and saluted. His cold brows were a little more respectful, and Chao Rushuan whispered softly, "I have seen the elder Ji Yin." On the side, Jian Nanshan also bowed quickly, "I have seen elder Ji Yin." Yilin and Xia Xiaoman looked at each other. This child seems young and ignorant, but from the tone of Chao Rushuan and Jian Nanshan, it seems that he is senior to them. Nanshan, is that the child with extraordinary talent you mentioned? Elder Ji Yin, who looked like a child but was much older than Jian Nanshan, looked at Yilin with warm eyes and looked him up and down. Jian Nanshan pressed down the raised heads of Yilin and Xia Xiaoman with both hands, and smiled together. Children are ignorant and have little knowledge. I hope Elder Jingying will not blame them. It doesn't matter. Elder Jingying smiled slightly and looked away from the two of them. He seemed to have lost interest and asked no more questions. At this point, Jian Nanshan's back bent slightly and he breathed a secret sigh of relief. Yilin was observing the micro-expressions of the people on the magic weapon and accidentally discovered that Jian Nanshan seemed to be quite afraid of children. What is the origin of this child? Yilin secretly kept an eye on it. Dehei, go ahead. Elder Ji Yin squatted down and patted the wet and smooth ground under his feet. At that moment, the cry they heard on the edge of the cliff echoed through the sky again. The difference is that, standing here at this moment, Yilin can clearly feel that along with the rhythm of the cry, the ground in contact with the solace of the feet is trembling, like the trembling of the vocal organ of some kind of creature. Dexia Xiaoman and Yilin's eardrums buzzed slightly, making them feel a little uncomfortable. Yilin looked surprised and stared at the floor. It turns out that the floor under his feet, this huge thing that looks like a magic weapon. Unexpectedly. Is it alive? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 831. Ah. Feeling like coming home. On the day Jian Nanshan put his hands behind his back and faced the sea breeze, with his long hair pushed back. This trip down the mountain was something he had worked hard for, and there were not many opportunities to be alone with his junior sister along the way. At this moment, Jian Nanshan was enjoying this rare peace. But suddenly, he felt something was wrong. The boy named Lin next to him squatted down and was tinkering with something. Jian Nanshan narrowed his eyes and took a look, and was so frightened that he broke into cold sweat. Evil obstacle, stop. He found that Yilin was actually digging at the floor with her fingers. Hiss. He doesn't even dare to do this. How dare you? Jian Nanshan was so frightened that he suddenly lifted Yilin up. Yilin looked at Jian Nanshan with innocent and childlike eyes. I'm just curious. Ha, not far away, the elder who led the way turned his back to a few people and chuckled. It's okay, everyone has a childish heart. For many years, no one dared to scratch Dehei's back. I think it's a bit interesting. Interesting? Can it still be like this? Jian Nanshan also became interested and wanted to imitate Yilin. Elder Jiying saw through Jian Nanshan's thoughts and reminded Wensu, but if we continue to arrest him, Dehei will be really angry. Jian Nanshan. He gave up this stupid idea instantly. Senior brother, what is Dahe? When Yilin was put back by Jian Nanchun, she was not angry and asked with a shy face. Shh. Jian Nanchun glared hard at Yilin, raised an index finger, and when he shushed, some spittle spewed out of his mouth because he was too vigorous. Yilin asked the elder Jiyin again, "Excuse me, can't we talk here?" Elder Jiying turned his head and looked at Yilin. There was a bit of surprise on his gentle face, and then there was a bit of interest in his eyes. Regardless of the difference in status, he nodded and answered Yilin's question, "Oh, Dahe on your back, you need to keep quiet. But you are not a disciple of Tianjian sect now, so you don't need to follow the sect's rules. Nanchun, there is no need to be restrained, just answer him." Yilin looked at Jian Nanchun proudly. Jian Nanchun's face immediately turned dark. But after the elders had spoken, Jian Nanchun could only say, "Dahe is the sea-suppressing demon beast of Tianjian section. It has the blood of the ancient demon beast Kun in its body. After being tamed by the ancestors of Tianjian sect, it has been with them for many years together with the elders. We are responsible for leading the disciples in the sect to the immortal mountain." Yilin thought for a moment, stretched out her index finger, and made a gesture with her other hand as if someone were stepping on it. "You can fly with a sword, can't you just fly in?" "Ha!" Jian Nanchun felt amused by the child's ignorant statement. "You can enter the Tianjian gate whenever you want and leave whenever you want? There are countless restrictions around the heavenly sword gate. Once these restrictions are triggered, you will not be able to enter them." Talking about casualties, many years ago there was a disciple who didn't know the heights of the world and wanted to secretly escape from the immortal mountain. What do you think happened in the end? Oh! Hey, that disciple who defected was lost in the confinement for a full 10 years. He could neither go to sea nor return to the mountains. When he was fished out of the confinement by the elders in the sect, he was already as skinny and dying, and no longer looked like his former glory. Hearing Jian Nanchun's words, Xia Ziomen, who had been having small thoughts in his heart not long ago, suddenly turned pale, bit his lips, hugged the kid in his arms tightly. His eyes were filled with confusion and helplessness. Next, the atmosphere became slightly awkward. Yilin stopped asking, Jian Nanchun stopped talking, and Xia Ziomen lowered his head, feeling depressed. Only the elder Jingying hummed a long tune softly in the sea breeze. There were thoughts deep in his eyes, floating out of the dust, and he seemed to be in a good mood. The entire journey was silent. There seemed to be some kind of power at work in the sea mist. When Yilin sensed something was wrong, she felt a little bit of the power of her telekinesis and released it a little as a test. He found that the sea fog, whether it was purely natural or man-made, was what Jian Nanchun called restriction, which actually greatly restricted the expansion of Yilin's sensory tentacles. In his perception, the sea fog was like dense and thick sea water, sticky and obscure, making it difficult for his tentacles to move. The vision in front of them became more and more hazy, and the few of them seemed to have gone deep into the foggy area, letting the hybrid Kun carry them deep into the unknown territory. Yilin noticed that in the sea mist, Xia Ziomen, who was feeling uneasy, involuntarily moved closer to Yilin. Their shoulders were almost level, and they were lightly touching each other through their thin clothes. Perhaps, in Xia Ziomen's heart, among the 5 people, only Yilin, who was also an ordinary person like her, could bring her some insignificant psychological relief. Finally, the fog dissipated. Waves of crisp bird calls came from afar, and the 5 of them suddenly became enlightened. When a new scene appeared in front of Yilin and Xia Ziomen, they both opened their mouths wide, obviously suffocated. A vast suspended continent that looks like an oblate cone from a distance is floating on the sea out of thin air, hundreds of meters away from the ground. In the center of the hanging continent, a high mountain towers into the clouds. A series of gentle white light pillars penetrate the layers of clouds and fall diagonally across the hanging mountain. The hanging mountain is lush and green, with dense forests, bamboo forests, red leaves, and yellow grasslands, all colorful and gorgeous. From the top of Xiankong Mountain, there seems to be a spring flowing down the mountain stream, forming streams, flowing straight down from top to bottom. Finally, it fell to the bottom of Xiankong Mountain and turned into a series of snow-white waterfalls. From a distance, the colorful Xiankong Mountain looked like a charming beauty, wearing a brocade bellyband and wrapped with white silk satin, dancing gracefully on the sea. Dance. And around the majestic hanging mountain, there are small peaks that slowly rotate around the main peak like satellites, also standing in the air. Groups of black and white cranes form a team and shuttle between the mountain peaks. If you have good eyesight, you can even see the monks walking together, laughing side by side in the sky. Xia Xiaoman came from the royal family. Although she had never seen any splendor and wealth, the scene in front of her was really beyond her scope of experience. She had only heard in the past that monks outside the country had great magical powers, and the fairy mountain where they lived could be called a paradise on earth, a fairyland on earth. I thought it was just an exaggerated legend, but I didn't expect it to be true. The reason why Yilin was shocked was a little different from Xia Xiaoman's. His first reaction was to integrate this design concept into his station to make the Apocalypse Guild station bigger, stronger, and better. 13 years later, Yilin once again thought of the station, the apocalypse, and all the things in reality. She suddenly calmed down, with a smile on her face and no wavering eyes. Elder Ji Ying didn't seem to care, but in fact he had been paying attention to the special boy mentioned by Jian Nanchun in the paper crane. He noticed that Yilin had regained his composure in a short period of time, and he was deeply concerned about Yilin's character. Watched a little higher. The hybrid Kun's huge body would naturally not be able to climb the immortal mountain. The leading elder waved to Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan. The latter two understood each other and flew up to the fairy mountain with each other as they had come. As we approached Fairy Mountain, we discovered that wooden huts had been built near the waterfalls at the bottom. The wooden huts stood side by side, making Yilin look like simple public toilets. Jian Nanchun carried Yilin and flew towards the public toilet. Yilin instantly had a bad feeling. "Princess, come with me." Elder Ji Yin stepped on the void, and with a casual move, the eldest princess holding the brocade bag involuntarily switched from Chao Rushuan's hand to Elder Ji Yin's hand. Taking the eldest princess Xia Xiaoman with him, he led the elders to fly straight to the top of the mountain without stopping. "Wait, what about me?" When Yilin saw it, she felt unhappy. She pointed at the public toilet in Yilin's eyes from a distance and flew away without looking back. Grass. Are there really only those public toilets? Yilin felt a big embarrassment in her heart. Really? Jian Nanchun brought Yilin to the wooden hut. Yilin squinted her eyes and stared at Jian Nanchun unkindly, waiting for a reasonable explanation. Ahem. Jian Nanchun coughed twice, and seemed to feel a little embarrassed, but his face was still light and pretending, and there was no trace of guilt at all. After Jian Nanchun placed Yilin near the wooden house, he put his hands behind his back and said to Yilin in a deep and profound tone, "Lin Yi, since you are destined to my Tianjian sect, from today on, you are mine." The official name of Tianjian section. A handyman disciple. Head boy, disciple. Yilin reached behind and touched behind him. He was hesitating whether to take out a mouthful of annihilation, a mouthful of disaster, or a shuttle. No, 2 shuttles were fresh and hot. Of bullets. Yilin wants to teach Jian Nanchun how to be a good senior brother, teach you how to be a good person. Junior brother, don't be anxious. Jian Nanchun noticed that Yilin's tone was not kind, and in order to stabilize Yilin's mood, he shamelessly called him junior brother. Junior brother, do you agree? Shameless. Jian Nanchun said. As the supreme master of the Taoist sect, Tianjian sect cannot be easily entered. Being able to be a handyman disciple is a great blessing that many people can only dream of in this world. As long as you become a handyman disciple, you will have the opportunity to practice on the immortal mountain. Once you show enough talent and can be noticed by the elders, you will have a great opportunity to enter the outer sect and become an official disciple of the Tianjian section. What does this guy mean? You can only upgrade step by step. Yilin thought about it, calmed down, and put the hand behind her back to her side. Jian Nanchun suddenly felt that he seemed to have passed by something just now, a strange misunderstanding. Approximately how long will it take? Yilin asked again. This. When Jian Nanchun was thinking about how to answer, in a wooden house not far away, a stooped, white-haired old man was carrying a pole with empty wooden barrels hanging on both sides. He was content and calm. Step out of the wooden hut. Common servant disciple, Chen Bei, met senior brother. Cough 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 cough. When the old man saw Jian Nanchun here, he moved very quickly. He quickly put down the pole and barrel and bowed to Jian Nanchun. But as if the movement was too violent, the old man took a breath and let out a dry cough that was not severe. No need to be polite. In front of Yilin, Jian Nanchun made some arrangements in front of the old man, then turned back to face the dark-faced Yilin, shrugged, and left a meaningful sentence. Junior brother, look, whether this lasts or lasts varies from person to person. There is another chapter of 3,000 words at 20:00. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 832. Time flies. Half a year has passed in the blink of an eye. Yilin, Lin Yi in this world, is a human race, 13.5 years old, belongs to the Tianjian sect, and is a glorious, handyman disciple. Half a year. Jian Nanchun is such a bitch, does he know how I got here in the past 6 months? One morning. The sun is rising. Light descends from heaven. Yilin got up from the bed of the wooden house in the extremely luxurious single apartment in the private room assigned by the sect, picked up the small carved wooden figure beside her, and used the family carpenter's knife that Lin's father gave to her with tears before leaving, and carved hard on the wooden figure. Leave a mark. In this era without electronic calendars, AI butlers, clocks, or mobile phones, Yilin developed the habit of recording the days casually. From the mouth of Uncle Chen Bei, a disciple of 10,000 years of handyman, Yilin learned that the place where Tianjianmen's hanging fairy mountain is located in a fairy land on earth. Listening to his description, Yilin speculated that this place was most likely a secret realm, or a singularity, or a copy. In short, it is a small world hidden in the big world. But the flow of time in the Tianjian sect immortal realm is no different from the secular world. 6 o'clock is one day, and 6 o'clock is one night. Day and night alternate, and the sun and moon take their by. So Yuren invented the timer herself. It was a small wooden figure carved by his hand. The 3 characters Jian Nanchun are engraved on the back of the wooden figure. Every day and night, Yilin carved a knife on the Jianese Chunmu man. So far, 189 shallow fine marks have been carved, not too many. They are so densely packed that there is almost no free space for the wooden figure. It's time to carve a new wooden figure. Yilin casually stuffed the timer puppet under the quilt and walked outside. There is a clear stream flowing down from the mountain and passing by the service room. The morning mist was misty, cooling and nourishing the lungs. Yilin used a wooden basin to fill a basin of water. After a brief wash, while there was still no movement in other wooden houses, he sat on a large round stone with a simple straw on it. Pu. This is the place where he usually meditates and breathes. Inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. Puff. Sucking in and out, a fart leaked out from Yulin's back door. It was leaking. Wa ha ha ha. An exquisite little person emerged from the back of Yulin's neck and laughed unscrupulously in his ear. Didn't I say that there are many experts here, and their spiritual consciousness range can almost cover the entire Hanging Fairy Mountain. If I find you, it will be difficult for me to explain. Yilin pinched Mini Bai Xiaoai's toothpick-thick arm, raised it in front of her, and scolded her with a dark face. Tisk, Master, didn't you say that a few months ago, your barrier was able to block most of the spiritual sense detection? Bai Xiaoai was held in Yilin's hand and played with carefully, but couldn't move. She couldn't help curling up, pretending to be pitiful. Can you please be careful? I can isolate most of the spiritual sense detection, but I don't say I can completely ignore it. You forgot that I told you more than 10 years ago that in a strange and unknown place, you should be patient if you can. If you can avoid being exposed, you can live a long life. Master, at Yilin's other ear, a palm-sized elf wearing a mini red dress, shaking his long snow-white hair, pure and pure, with a face as cold as ice, reminded in a helpless tone, that's who sneaked outside Wanjuan Mountain at midnight last night to explore the restrictions on Lingshan Mountain. This other mini figure, if you look closely, is the shrunken Nai Hongxiu. After Nai Hong's sleeves shrunk, she lost a bit of mature charm and became a bit more girlish and innocent. Standing together with Bai Xiaoai, they looked like a pair of elf sisters. Of course, in fact, in their original story, the real relationship between the two of them was not that of mother and daughter, but that they lost their memory after becoming ghosts, and then they made mistakes and then made mistakes. Yilin's face was dulled by the words of the two little female spirits, so he could only keep a straight face, show the majesty of his master, coughed twice, and argued, I'm not just exploring outside. After probing and rubbing, didn't you go in? If you did, someone would have discovered it long ago. Nai Hongxiu and Bai Xiaoai looked at each other, silently refuting Yilin's habitual sophistry. This past 6 months, Yilin started to grow her hair long. I don't know if the food here has added hormones. Since coming here, even if he eats light food every day, his height has grown at a speed visible to the naked eye. Yilin was 1.4 meters tall when she arrived, and now she is 1.6 meters tall. If Yilin went to a brothel now and put on brocade clothes, he would really have the demeanor of an ordinary handsome young man. Even though her hair has not been cut for half a year, Yilin is also used to growing her hair long, tying it back with a strong straw rope like a ponytail. After taking her daily breath in the morning, Yilin was harassed by the two mother spirits and had no intention of fighting anymore, so she slapped Xiaomei back, who was about to emerge from her long hair to say something, and stood up to pick up the pole from the wooden hut. And in front of the service room, he picked 2 barrels from the row and walked to the stream. Xiao Linzi, it's morning. When Yilin was about to start working, the door of Uncle Chenbei's room opened. He carried the basin to wash up with a smile, and smiled at Yilin. Hello, Uncle Chen. Yilin released his hands from the pole, and his shoulders suddenly sank. The straw sandals he was wearing suddenly pressed an inch into the mud, and his whole body sank. But his expression remained unchanged, and he raised his free hands to greet Uncle Chenbei. You're welcome, you're welcome. Ha ha ha. Chenbei waved his hand and turned back to the wooden house. After Uncle Chenbei returned to the house, other wooden houses also started to have commotion. There are now 26 handyman disciples in the handyman class, including Uncle Chenbei and Yilin. Among the 26 servant disciples, the one who has stayed the longest is undoubtedly the white-haired master Kang Chenbei. The youngest and pinkest newcomer is naturally Yilin. After staying here for half a year, Yilin understood the profound meaning of what Jian Nanchun said half a year ago. When Yilin first arrived, there were actually 27 people in the handyman class. Only now has one person been transferred and officially become an outer disciple of Tianjian sect. It is said that his career as a handyman from a handyman disciple to an outer disciple lasted for nearly 10 years. When he left, he burst into tears and screamed to the sky to vent his joy. Yilin could understand it, but couldn't imagine it. How can this kind of handyman career last for 10 years, day after day, year after year? If it were Yilin, it would be better if he didn't wait for Tianjianmen. Who do you look down on? This is what Yilin thought at the time. As for now, Yilin doesn't care much. As for the reason, he. The barrel on the shoulder is particularly heavy. On the day he first arrived, Uncle Chenbei instructed Yilin how to carry water and what procedures the handyman disciples should follow every day. At that time, Yilin didn't pay attention. An empty barrel was carried on his shoulder, which almost drove the young man into the soil. It wasn't until Uncle Chenbei cheerfully lifted the barrel from Yilin's shoulder with one hand that Yilin finally understood that something was wrong with the barrel. What material is the barrel made of, you bastard? Later, Uncle Chenbei explained that these wooden barrels were all made of Jinding Chenyuan wood produced in Nanzan Buzhu. This kind of wood was not very useful for refining magic weapons. This kind of wood has a distinctive feature: it is extremely heavy. A seemingly simple wooden barrel weighs more than 600 kilograms. It is no wonder that Yilin, who is thin and frail, cannot carry it with physical strength alone. So how does the seemingly old Mr. Chenbei resist? Is he really a powerful man hiding among the handymen? No, the plot is not that bloody. In fact, the reason why Uncle Chenbei can carry these barrels is very simple. Refining qi. There is a special magic circle inside the barrel. As long as the breath continues to circulate, the weight of the barrel can be greatly reduced, making it seem as if it is a lightweight. Once the flow of breath stops or becomes sluggish, the barrel will press down again, crushing the person. Just this water-raising project has all kinds of profound meanings, which opened Yilin's eyes. The emphasis is on breathing. As Yilin's eyes opened and closed, small air currents surged through his limbs. His feet that had sunk into the soil were lifted up again. He hummed a tune easily and took flexible steps, following the winding path. After filling the wooden bucket with clean water, he walked up the mountain. At the same time, on the top of the main peak of Hanging Mountain, there is a villa here. The courtyard of the villa is filled with purple flowers that never wither all year round, and a dead tree with no leaves left on it. On the bluestone board covered with purple petals, there is a stone table, 2 stone benches, and 2 old men wearing Taoist robes. The 2 old men did not know that they were both noble and gray-haired this year, but they had rosy faces, delicate skin, and delicate eyebrows, making them look like children with white hair. The most amazing thing is that the facial features of the 2 old people are almost identical. No matter how close or rough you look, you can't see any difference. Between the 2 old men, there was a chessboard on the stone table. The vertical and horizontal lines of the chessboard are numbered 19 each, which is clearly an ordinary Go game. One of the old men held a black piece in his hand and looked at the empty chessboard, but he didn't drop it. Both old men closed their eyes tightly, and their eyeballs squirmed under their eyelids, as if they were thinking or looking at something. He is Lin Yi from Qingyu Mountain in Dongsheng Shenzhou. Yes, Lin Yi. 6 months. No matter how mediocre the qualifications of the monks are, they should cultivate to the 5th level of receiving qi. But why is he still lingering on the 2nd level of Naki? The conversation between the 2 was very strange. The former had just finished speaking half a sentence, while the latter continued smoothly without pausing. The conversation between the 2 sounded as smooth as one person talking to himself. When this child moves, his breath flows smoothly. But the sea of qi sometimes condenses and sometimes disperses, and sometimes gathers in space and time. It is difficult to make a great weapon. But he understood the secret of the blood refining and sword art. Oh! It's that tasteless book. Who gave it to him? The supreme leader. How is that possible? The old man who spoke first finally opened his eyes and said in surprise. Why not? The old man who spoke next also opened his eyes. Oh, brother, you opened your eyes first, but it was disrespectful to me and you struck first. When the latter heard the words, he was speechless and secretly annoyed. The white piece fell onto the chessboard with a snap. Lozi, Tianyuan. You really want to lose. The two put away their spiritual consciousness and started fighting fiercely on the checkered chessboard. You came and I went back and forth, refusing to give in to each other. An hour later, Lozi Tianyuan was defeated miserably. The 2 chapters add up to more than 6,000 words, which is a bit too long to write. So yesterday I said I was asking for leave, but in fact I didn't ask for it completely. Please give me a monthly pass, subscribe, and continue reading. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 833. Have you finally left? Yilin noticed that the sense of prying eyes had disappeared, and she took off her innocent disguise again. Since he came to the handyman class from different directions of Hanging Mountain, there is a sense of peeping from time to time. He knew that it was a monk's unique skill, spiritual awareness. Spiritual consciousness has endless magical uses. It can detect, shock, show off, and close eyes. In the beginning, spiritual explorations from different directions were not frequent, about once a month. Half a year has passed, and in the past half month, I don't know who is so shameless, watching and peeping every day, which has annoyed Yilin. Don't the handyman disciples have the right to privacy? Shameless. Yilin was furious. The job of a handyman disciple is very boring. In terms of work type, they can be roughly divided into carrying water, chopping bamboo, washing clothes, cooking, and taking care of spiritual animals. This month, Yilin was assigned to the water-carrying group again. According to Yilin's normal pace, she walked from the foot of the mountain to the designated water delivery location on the mountainside, and then returned the empty bucket to the service room, back and forth, until noon. Further up, that is the area that only formal disciples are eligible to enter. Idle disciples and ownerless spiritual beasts are not allowed to enter. After lunch, another round will end the day's work. Although it may seem easy to carry water in 2 rounds, if it were him a few months ago, without cheating, he could barely walk up and down the mountain once a day, which would be considered fast. It is said that some handyman disciples went up the mountain early in the morning when they first arrived and did not come down until midnight. They had no choice but to sleep in the wind and cold in the bamboo forest all night. Uncle Chenbei also praised Yilin's rapid progress, saying that Yilin was one of the fastest progressing disciples among so many generations of handyman disciples. Yilin looked at the sky from a distance and saw that there was still some time before sunset. He secretly estimated that based on his current level, he could barely return before nightfall if he had another round. It's just, why bother? How happy it is to fish. It took Yilin a full second to finally figure it out. She had a clear idea and simply walked down the mountain slowly. On the way back, other handyman disciples who were also in the water-carrying group were walking up the mountain, swaying left and right, sweating profusely, and stopping by a tree from time to time to rest for a while. Some of them hadn't even finished the first round, so they watched Yilin carrying the pole on his shoulder with one hand, with 2 empty wooden barrels strung on the end of the pole, humming a tune, relaxed and happy, and couldn't help but feel envious. Come on. As they passed by, Yiren encouraged her colleagues in a friendly manner. People and their situations cannot be generalized. Yilin saw this clearly. When Yilin returned to the handyman class, the handyman disciples who shared the rest of the work returned one after another. In the past 6 months, the disciples in the handyman class have been coming and going, and there has not been much change. Every time they come and go, they all become familiar with each other. They say hello from a distance and say goodbye. Uncle Chenbei joined the laundry class this time. Among the many chores, the laundry class is the most comfortable. It is not tiring. It just depends on the speed of the hands. Let's see who can rub it fast and furiously. When the uncle saw Yilin returning easily, He looked at Yulin up and down for a moment, and then said meaningfully, "Boy, you are much faster." Easy to say, easy to say. Speaking of Uncle Chen, not long after arriving, Yulin curiously asked how many years Uncle Chenbei had been staying as the most senior handyman disciple. Of course Uncle Chenbei doesn't remember it. Day after day, year after year, if he can count the days, he is no longer an uncle. At that time, Uncle Chen asked who was the emperor outside. Yulin said she didn't know Ji Sheng, and neither did Emperor Xia Yuan. It wasn't until he talked about Emperor Xia Yuan's ancestors that Uncle Chenbei, Fang are you, woke up from a dream and said, "It's been a long time. One jiazi, that is, 60 years. Old man, it's so scary. The old man is worthy of being an old man. Although his cultivation is not high, he knows a lot." In her spare time, Yulin would ask some trivial matters about the inside of Tianjian sect and some cultivation issues. Although Uncle Chenbei couldn't reach high levels of cultivation, Yulin was surprised that his foundation was extremely solid. He could draw inferences about where the meridians of the human body were and what role each acupuncture point played in the technique. I can talk casually for a long time. Oh, this handyman class has hidden a treasure. Everyone else in the handyman class looked down upon Uncle Chenbei. After all, an old man who had been practicing for 60 years and had yet to be promoted to a formal disciple, in the eyes of the younger generation of handyman disciples, was no longer worthy of this life. That's it, no further progress possible. But Yulin didn't think so. He had a completely different attitude from the others. He was polite to Uncle Chen. He often knocked on the door with some homemade snacks to say hello, which made Uncle Chenbei so happy that he wanted to use all his shallow knowledge. Take it out and stuff it into the mind of this studious young talent. On this day, Yulin still got up early in the morning and casually carved a knife on the newly carved Jianan Chun Timer No. 2, this knife was carved on his face. Afterwards, he walked out of the wooden house, sat on the stone, closed his eyes and breathed. As he vomited, prying eyes swept back and forth from him and around him. Is it becoming more frequent? Yulin looked at his nose with his eyes, his mouth with his nose, his heart with his mouth, and thought of Amitabha in his mind. He pretended not to know, remained motionless, and his breath was as steady as an old dog. But his mind became more active, and he secretly said to himself. He vaguely understood something. After finishing her daily breathing, Yulin felt the weak whirlpool in her body, with a slight look of helplessness on her fair face. Perhaps this is that devilish talent, the heavenly jealous wizard. Heavenly jealousy wizard, comprehension add 200, 5 elements spiritual root qualification -30, cultivation speed -30, life limit -30, health -30. Under the influence of this red ball talent, Yulin's understanding is estimated to be maxed out, but his training speed, qualifications, lifespan, and health have all been reduced to a certain extent. Yulin feels that his practice in Qi training is slow and he has made little progress, which may be related to this matter is related. Speaking of which, after half a year of Qi training, Yulin still has something that he can't figure out. In Qi training, a way of strengthening the human body, there are two key terms, meridians and acupuncture points. In human anatomy, these two organs are absolutely impossible to find. However, when breathing in and out, Yulin can feel the trajectory of the breath flowing in the body, as well as the nodes where the breath stops for a while. This makes Yulin, who comes from a modern civilized society, feel incredible and feel very unscientific. If you want to say that blood vessels, lymphatic vessels, tendons, etc. can be cut out anatomically, Yulin can easily understand it, but in what metaphysical way do these meridians and acupuncture points exist in the human body? Yulin feels that if you want to understand this subject, you must first overcome the above problems from scientific theory. Whenever she thought about this, Yulin stopped talking, took out 4 different secret books, spread them out in front of her, turned a page here, turned a page there, and thought about it again. In fact, he has read these 4 secret books countless times in the past 6 months. He clearly remembers every word, every stain, and every missing point in them. But reading a book always requires a sense of ritual, and Yulin has also developed a habit, which makes reading more healthy. These 4 secret books are actually not treasures. There is a book called Yun Ti Feng Shen Shu which is passed down from family. The second book is the introductory Buddhist scripture Qingming mantra presented by the old monk Kuyu Zen master. The third book was a copy of Sword Heart Miscellaneous Records, an introductory guide to Tianjian sect, that Jian Nanchun rarely showed up during the first month of Yilin's handyman career. Every disciple of Tianjian sect's handyman had a copy of it. The fourth book has an interesting origin. It was at the end of the third month of Yilin's handyman career that Jian Nanchun secretly opened the door of Yilin's room and forced it in through the crack of the door like a thief, a tattered book with the cover torn off. After mysteriously handing over the broken copy to Yilin in this way, Jian Nanchun slipped away without saying a word, acting like a thief. These 4 secret books have accompanied Yilin through the past 6 months. As a scholar, with books and topics, he is not afraid of loneliness. Yilin felt like she was back in the Great Engineer Tower or in the Clock Tower, the days when she absorbed knowledge and thirsted for knowledge without any worries. Her heart was focused and peaceful, with no distractions. So, another month passed. The spying consciousness became more and more frequent and became more and more shameless. Someday, Yilin felt something in her heart. While chatting with Uncle Chenbei Hugan, she said inexplicably, "I might have to leave." When Uncle Chenbei heard this, he was stunned for a moment, then smiled and said, "Congratulations, Xiaolin." Yilin could tell that Uncle Chenbei was sincerely congratulating him, and there was no trace of jealousy or resentment in his cloudy eyes. Yilin only said this to Uncle Chenbei. If other people in the handyman class heard it, they might sneer or ridicule him face to face. Speaking of which, Yilin can also pretend to be a big dick. But Yilin found it boring. "This is cool, just don't pretend." Not long after Yilin said those words to Uncle Chenbei. Someday, the morning glow is like starlight, splashing on the eaves. Jian Nanchun was waiting in front of the path of the service room early in the morning. Jian Nanchun was still dressed in white, spotless, and untouched by dew. His hair was half tied and half bundled, and there was no wind blowing in his hair. When Yilin opened the door, Jian Nanchun was like a handsome sculpture, with his hands behind his back and a snow-white paper umbrella floating behind him. He was facing the sky at a perfect angle of 45 degrees, his angular chin pointing diagonally at the ground. His forehead there are 2 bunches of long bangs on the top of her head, one on the left and one on the right, which adds a bit of mystery to her face. Yilin's hand holding the door stiffened for a moment, feeling speechless. After being silent for a moment, he couldn't help but ask, "Are you tired?" "Oh, I'm not tired." Jian Nanchun didn't hear the deep meaning of Yilin's words for a while. He also said that this young junior brother is so considerate and knows how to feel sorry for his senior brother. He was secretly happy in his heart, but his face didn't show it. He still had the style that always belonged to him. Qing Yundan said, "Junior brother, someone wants to see you." Okay, Yilin was not surprised at all and casually threw a small object towards Jian Nanchun. "Senior brother, I came just in time to give it to you." "Yo. And gifts?" Jian Nanchun took it with one hand and found that it was an ugly wood carving. The surface of the wood carving was engraved with fine knife marks. When he turned it over, he saw that his name was engraved on the back. He didn't understand what Yilin meant by throwing the garbage over, so he asked, "What is this?" Somehow, looking at the wooden figure, Mushan felt uncomfortable all over, as if being scratched by a knife. "Long time no see, I miss you so much." Yilin squinted at that face, resisting the urge to punch Jian Nanchun, and said with a smile, Every time I miss my senior brother, I draw a knife on the wood carving. If I miss you again, I will miss you again, carve a knife. Day after day, the sun rises and sets. Unexpectedly, as time goes by, the wood carvings of senior fellow apprentices have been completely changed beyond recognition and have lost their human form. Junior fellow apprentices feel very sorry. Jian Nan Chun. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 834. After Yi Lin and Jian Nan Chun Yu Jian left. Uncle Qianbei looked at the two people leaving with a sigh of relief, feeling very emotional. He was lamenting that time passes like water and passes without leaving a trace. But the uncle didn't lament for too long. In the past 60 years, he has seen too many things in the handyman class. Whether they are young talents or mediocre juniors. Too much, too much, too much. Uncle Qianbei hummed a little tune, easily picked up Yilin's dropped pole, and prepared to go up the mountain. At this point, the morning light fell, and the remaining handyman disciples had no idea that another disciple had left the handyman class. They were washing, eating, and preparing for the day's work in ignorance. Right now. Suddenly. Everything was silent. Except for Uncle Qianbei, all the handyman disciples strangely stopped moving. They were motionless, their eyes, breathing, and heartbeats all strangely still, like sculptures. A woman with white hair like a waterfall and a crested jade hairpin in her bun stood behind Mr. Qianbei at some unknown time. Uncle Qianbei paused for a moment, slowly put down the pole, turned around, and looked at the woman who appeared behind him. The woman's face was veiled and her face could not be seen clearly. But those eyes seemed to contain the sun, moon, and stars, and contained divine light. Uncle Qianbei looked at it for a moment and sighed, I haven't seen you for a while, why are you here? Haven't seen you for a long time. The woman's tone was calm. Hey, Uncle Qianbei chuckled, as the saying goes, time flies by and looks grow old quickly, but when I look at you, you are still as beautiful as a flower. I am very jealous. The woman was wearing a plain white Taoist robe. When she heard the words, her eyes did not waver. She just slowly raised her hand. As the woman raised her hand, the white and delicate skin on the back of her hand began to tremble at a speed visible to the naked eye. Wrinkles and loses luster. It was as if in these few short breaths, the woman was washed away by the torrent of time again and aged rapidly. But this weird scene didn't last long. The woman's old skin disappeared in an instant and she returned to her youth. The woman said softly, if senior brother is willing, junior sister is willing to face him like an elder. When Uncle Qianbei heard this, he quickly shook his head, that's all, it's better to be young. The woman gently lowered her hand. The two of them were silent. The atmosphere was awkward. When Uncle Qianbei wanted to say something to ease the embarrassment, the woman added, junior sister is looking for someone to inherit the master's legacy. The person you like is Chao Rushuan. Yes. That girl is good, but a bit off. How is Lin Yi? The understanding is extremely high, the character is good, and the qualifications are not satisfactory. He is a good seedling, Uncle Qianbei grinned, but what makes me most confused is that he seems to have a short life, and he does not look like a monk who can prolong his life. Weird. The woman nodded, as if she just asked Lin Yi casually and didn't take it too seriously. After saying that, the woman turned around and wanted to leave. Qianbei asked again, could it be that you want to recruit Lin Yi? The woman stopped and her veil floated up, revealing the corners of her plump lips. You know, I don't accept male disciples. Qianbei hesitated for a moment, but still said what was in his heart, but because of him. Senior brother, you know clearly, why bother asking? Obsession. Qianbei sighed. It is this obsession that keeps Junior's sister alive until now. But it's this obsession that ultimately kills you. In the past 5,000 years, after the Empress Kiju, no one has been able to break through the ninth heaven. If letting go of obsession can help Junior's sister live another 3 to 200 years, then it's okay not to let go. Stubborn. Thank you. The woman left. This time, it seemed like it was really just reminiscing about old times. The next time we meet may be another 60 years later. After the woman left, Chenbei picked up the pole again, carrying 2 empty barrels, and followed the path up the mountain. Chenbei seemed to be in a good mood today, humming a song while hiking. If Yilin were here, they would find that what Chenbei hums is clearly the tune that Yilin usually hums, with the flavor of a modern pop song. Songs like Let That Girl Go, Love Is a Wind, Made My Heart Break and Tears Flow All Night. Humming, fog rose in the forest, hitting Chenbei's face, condensing into dewdrops, and sliding down the wrinkles on his face. If you don't know why, you might think that the old man is crying. Or, he was really crying. You are not the only one who is obsessed with me. In the bamboo forest in the mist and on the path beside the stream, melancholy sighs can be heard. It wasn't until the woman and Chenbei left separately. The other handyman disciples in front of the handyman room started to make some noise again. It's as if the sculpture comes to life and comes back to life. They knew nothing about the conversation that had just occurred. Here, everyone seems to have a story. Some stories are like a bowl of tea. Some stories are like a bottle of strong wine. The story of Jian Nanchun is a bit over the top. Yilin and Jian Nanchun flew in the sky. After half a year, Jian Nanchun was afraid that Yilin would forget, so he reminded him in a low voice, "Junior brother, for the sake of senior brother reminding you, please don't forget our agreement." It would be better if Jian Nanchun didn't speak. As soon as she opened her mouth, Yilin couldn't help but take out the Jian Nanchun number 2 that she didn't have time to carve a few more times with. Yilin felt a little angry. Why the hell did you leave me in the handyman class for half a year, and then you went to be romantic and happy? If I don't bother you, your fate is in danger. How dare you mention the promise? Brother Chun, do you still want to be shameless? Yilin remained silent. Jian Nanchun noticed that Yilin had a knot in his heart, so he took advantage of the opportunity to explain, "Junior brother Lin, you don't know something." He officially entered the Tianjian sect and worked in the handyman class for 3 to 7 years, but every disciple must go through the road. The same to you. Of course Jian Nanchun chuckled, "Do you know Chenbei?" "No. Senior brother, he was already there when I was in the handyman class. 20 years have passed, but he is still there. Do you understand?" Forget it. Yilin decided not to argue too much with this guy for the time being, she didn't have time. He casually asked about Xiaoxiaoman. Speaking of which, Yilin was not concerned about the eldest princess, but the human emperor's seal in the eldest princess's pocket. That was a major matter related to his life and death in this world. "You mean junior sister Xia?" When outside, Jian Nanchun was not happy, but when he got inside, he was called junior sister and junior brother very smoothly. Jian Nanchun simply told what happened to Xiaoxiaoman. Not to mention, Yilin doesn't know yet. It turns out that the handyman class is divided into male and female disciples. The female disciples' handyman class is on the other side of the hanging fairy mountain. The male and female classes have no intersecting routes at all. This is also for safety. When Yilin found out that Xiaoxiaoman, as the eldest princess of Daqian, also did the same chores as him, she felt instantly relieved and a euphoric smile appeared on her face. Who gave that unknown secret book? Yilin thought of the rags Jian Nanchun had packed in the 3rd month and asked casually. Jian Nanchun hesitated for a moment and finally shook his head, "Junior brother Lin won't ask any questions about this matter." Seeing that Jian Nanchun seemed to have something to hide, Yilin nodded and asked no more questions. Not long after, Jian Nanchun's flying sword arrived at its destination. It is a villa located on the main peak. Tianjianmen hangs on the Fairy Mountain and has a vast area. There are many peaks on Fairy Mountain. On many mountain peaks, that is, in mid-air, there are floating islands. There are forests, grass, and mountains on the islands. This landform is magnificent, magical, and amazing. As for this villa, Yilin saw it from a distance when she was exploring at night, but did not go deep into it. When Jian Nanchun led him to the gate of Biwen, Yilin frowned. Elder Chuan Gong's Biwen. These words shocked Jian Nanchun. How did junior brother Lin know? It stands to reason that the place where the handyman team usually works is at most outside the Fairy Mountain floating island, and at most it is close to the residence of the outer disciples, Zizu Forest, Jingxin Abyss, and other formal disciples' training places. Further inside, there is abundant spiritual energy, and miscellaneous disciples and ownerless spiritual beasts are not allowed to enter. The main peak of the Fairy Mountain floating island in the core area is where the inner disciples live alone in wooden houses, the elders' villas and other places, and the handyman disciples are not qualified to come up. But junior brother Lin recognized Elder Chuan Gong's villa at a glance. How could he be so skillful as if he was browsing his own backyard garden? Jian Nanchun slowly raised a question mark in his heart and was about to ask a question. Right now. Behind the old closed wooden door, two voices came out in unison, mixed together. Now that you're here, come in. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 835. The wooden door opened naturally. Yilin didn't even bother to use this pretentious trick, but she didn't expect that the other party would still use it. Yilin sighed. Jian Nanchun was outside the door and did not enter. He cupped his hands and left on his own. Before leaving, Jian Nanchun glanced at Yilin, as if to say, "Junior brother Lin, please wish for yourself." In front of Jian Nanchun, Yilin expressionlessly took out Jian Nanchun number 2 and slashed the knife to express her longing for senior brother Jian Nanchun. Inside the door were two old men with gray hair and childlike faces. The yard was covered with purple flowers, and the petals fell and covered the ground. As the breeze blows, petals everywhere are curling and relaxing. In the corner of the courtyard, there is a bare old tree, which is in sharp contrast to the flowers all over the yard. Two old men are playing chess. On one side of the chessboard, a soft futon was placed in advance, as if waiting for Yilin to take a seat. Really? The two old men didn't even look at Yilin. They just stared at the empty chessboard. At the same time, they stretched out their hands, pointed at the futon beside them, and said at the same time, "Sit." Yilin sat down obediently. What can I do if I don't sit down? Turn around and run? Not so rebellious. After Yilin sat down, she began to look around. The layout of the courtyard is clear at a glance, the courtyard is elegant, and the decoration of the villa is simple, nothing special. But the appearance of the two old men made Yilin pay attention. At first he thought he was face blind. But if she looked carefully, Yilin realized that it wasn't her fault, but that the two old men looked exactly alike. This Mao is not an exaggeration. Not only the appearance of the two old men, but also the thickness, direction, bangs, and bun of the eyebrows are all exactly the same, as if they were printed from a template, which is a bit interesting. Even if they are twins, the two of them are like mirror images, which is a bit exaggerated. Yilin sat down cross-legged without making any comment, quietly waiting for the next event. The two old men were very satisfied with Yilin's performance. They had also received other disciples they liked in the past. But after these disciples arrived, they glanced left and right, acting like country bumpkins who had never seen the world, making them want to slap them in the face to make them feel embarrassed. But Lin Yi was very calm and admirable. It's just that these two compatriots, the elderly, didn't take it seriously. At this time, the old man sitting on Yilin's right looked at Yilin with a smile and asked softly, "Lin Yi, do you know chess?" Yilin was not sure before. But when the old man asked, Yilin understood. "Sure enough, you are the shameless ones." They mentioned Yilin's name in one breath. Jian Nanshan didn't mention it, and Yilin didn't mention it either. It seemed that the two twins were monks who used their spiritual senses to spy on Yilin all day long. "Ahem, I understand a little bit." Yilin coughed lightly to hide her embarrassment. Although she felt that the two of them were shameless, it was better not to show this emotion. In fact, Yiren is not being modest. To be honest, he really knows a little bit about a thing or two. That is, to the extent that he barely understands the rules and the next one or two pieces. But knowing a little bit about it doesn't mean that if Yilin really gets down, it would be weak. Go is a test of game thinking and overall situation. The more insidious a person is, the more accomplished they are at Go, and they can trick people to death. White stones and black stones, in a chessboard game, isn't it just a trap to kill the opponent? After the two asked this question and got the answer they wanted, they stopped asking more questions and started playing chess. Snapped. The old man on the right falls down holding a white piece. The old man on the left started to fight back. Yilin did not judge whether the two old men were good at chess or not, but at least they played chess very fast, leaving almost no room for thinking. Half an hour later, the chessboard was clearly black and white, and the winner was determined. White loses. One move away. Crash. All the black and white pieces floated up from the chessboard on their own and fell into the jade bowls beside them. The two of them did not ask Yilin how he played, nor did they ask Yilin whether he understood. What was outrageous was that they did not even look at Yilin again. After putting away the black and white stones, the second round was seamlessly connected and the battle continued. Another round of fighting. This time, it was the turn of the old man on the left, Hiza, to go first. Another half hour. Blackie loses. One move away. Game 3. White moves first. White loses. Still one step behind. The fourth game. The fifth game. Yilin watched 5 games in a row. He had already seen the clues. I see. After 5 rounds, Yilin sat down from early morning to noon. Without moving a step, the discs in her lumbar vertebrae started to hurt. At the beginning of the 6th game, Yilin stopped watching the game and started reading in front of the two old men with a secret book. What makes people angry is that what Yilin is reading is not the family secret book, nor the secret book of Tianjian sect, but the Buddhist introductory book Qingming Mantra given by Zen Master Kuyet. Really? The two old men who were focused on playing chess were distracted and began to play randomly. Their eyes drifted towards Yilin from time to time. He seemed to be wondering, how dare this boy openly read Buddhist classics on the territory of the Taoist Supreme? Who gave you the courage? Although they peeked from time to time, they learned that Yilin had several classics on her body. But reading Buddhist classics in front of the two of them is a bit too much. Is it because the classics of our Tianjian sect are no longer good? Snort. Among the twins, the old man on the right snorted, flicked his wrist, and dropped a book. Tianxin Sword Formation. A very well-preserved book with no missing words or pages. Yilin didn't even raise her head, unmoved. Among the twins, the old man on the left casually dropped a word, and in a useless corner, he threw another blue-covered book onto Yilin's leg with a snap. Fire Cloud Sword. But what they didn't expect was that Yilin remained unmoved. They couldn't help it anymore and turned their heads to look at this ignorant boy. They asked in unison, "What are you looking at?" Yilin said, "Watch chess." Hearing this, the twins immediately straightened their beards. Even a blind person can see that this guy is talking nonsense. So each of them said, "Nonsense. Nonsense." Yulin's eyes finally moved away from Qingming mantra reluctantly. He picked up the two books Tianxin Sword Formation and Fire Cloud Sword on the ground, beat them together, and hid them in his arms. The two old men looked at Yulin's shameless and natural movements. Before they could say anything, Yulin explained, "It is said to be watching chess, but I didn't watch it completely. There is no chess game in which the outcome can be determined at a glance. For the value of watching, I might as well save some time and read more books." "Oh," the old man on the right's eyes lit up. "Elaborate," the old man on the left chuckled. He added another word and took the initiative to send away his territory. Yulin had a childlike smile on her face, explaining her behavior. In fact, from the third game onwards, Yulin sensed something was wrong. Even though he doesn't know much about Go, after watching 2 games, he can already imagine the thrill of the game between the two on the chessboard from the moves. But at the beginning of the third game, Yulin discovered that no matter who played first, the latter seemed to be able to understand the former's thoughts, plan ahead, drop a piece, intercept a piece, set up a game, and solve a game. The two of them fought back and forth on the chessboard, but in the end they all ended up with the same outcome: whoever plays first loses. At the beginning of the fourth game, it was still the same. Yulin was thinking, why is this happening? Did the two of them know each other too well? No matter how well they know each other, they are still two people, and they will not reach the point where they understand each other step by step. In the fifth game, Yulin understood. If this chessboard is viewed as the left and right hands of the same person playing chess, there will be no sense of inconsistency. In other words, these two twins are on the same page. They can completely understand each other's inner thoughts, as if they are the same person, heart to heart, hands together, together. That's why Yulin said she didn't want to watch it. Whoever makes the move first loses. In this kind of chess game where the outcome can be seen at a glance, the process is no longer unimportant and there is no suspense at all. When Yulin expressed her thoughts, the two old men looked at each other. After a while, each of them started discussing in front of Yulin. Really? Excellent understanding. Good-natured. Qualifications are low. It's a malleable talent. But compared to the best in the sect, not quite. Not even close. Really a small cut. Barely. What a pity, what a pity. So. It doesn't matter. Qualifications don't matter. Diligence can make up for weakness. You, Lin Yi. We want it. Although the others are not bad either. But your temper suits me. It's also to my liking. Calm enough. Young and mature. There is a shortage of flower gardeners and sweepers in the garden. So. You are the one. This kind of conversation, where one person finished speaking and the next took over, like an idiom like solitaire, was an eye-opener for Yulin. Yulin couldn't laugh or cry. But in this funny conversation, Yulin also understood one thing. The odd job life is over. Infinity Throne. Author, by Yi Shueshi. Chapter 836. Legend. In ancient times, geniuses emerged in large numbers. A woman appeared out of nowhere, and no one knew where she came from, no one knew her real name, and no one knew her true face. But when she defeated all the invincible opponents in the world and was invincible in high places, she became famous all over the world as the 7th Ultimate Empress. Looking down at the world, no one can rival him. In ancient times, among monks, there was no distinction between Buddha, Taoism, and demons. Only divided into human race and demon race. In that era, humans and monsters could still coexist harmoniously. Because of the way they practice, monks are collectively called chi refiners. But one day, the Kiju Empress suddenly disappeared. Some say she is dead. Some say she lives in seclusion. Some say she ascended to the upper world. Opinions vary. But the only thing that is certain is that since that day, no one has seen the Kiju Empress again. Legend has it that she left 6 unique weapons in the world. These 6 unique artifacts have changed hands and had different owners over the past 5,000 years. In the yard full of purple petals, Yilin closed several secret books. He became the registered disciple of the elder Chuan-gong. This process is quite magical, and I fell in love with it out of nowhere. Note that the two of them have the same mind and are the same person. The two of them together are the elder who transmits the power. It is said that when fighting outside, no matter whether the opponent is 1 person or 100 people, they are of the same mind and advance and retreat together. They were separated, one was called Gongyang Black and the other was called Gongyang White. Weird name. Yilin jokingly calls them the black and white sheep. Although Black and White Yang has a weird personality, he has a good character. On the first day when Yilin became a registered disciple, he took out one entry-level secret book after another and threw it to Yilin. You pick. Of course Yilin chose to take it all. Only children make choices. And 13-year-old Lin Yi is already an adult. Do adults still need to make choices? Yilin looked around. Speaking of which, the flowers planted in the yard and the dead trees planted in the corner of the yard are not ordinary worldly things. That purple flower is said to be called Wuxin flower. The flowering and leafing period of this plant lasts for 100 years, and the leaves grow for 100 years without flower cores. Once they bloom, they are squeezed out directly from the leaves. After the flowers bloom, they will not wither for 100 years. Even if they are picked, they will not wither and can last forever. Maintain a polished appearance. And that dead tree is called the infatuation fruit tree. After planting the fruit tree, some monks may never see it bear fruit in their lifetime. It all depends on fate. Once it bears fruit, only infatuated people can pick the fruit, and non-infatuated people cannot touch it or reach it. When listening to the black and white elders bragging about their taste in family culture, Yilin suspected that they were bragging. But Yilin has no evidence. The action roots of the white and black sheep are also very regular. The two of them are elders who teach the practice. In addition to being responsible for teaching martial arts, he usually plays chess out of boredom. Day after day, year after year. At the beginning of each month, the square on the top of the mountain would be filled with formal disciples of the Heavenly Sword section. The two elders would select a classic book of the Heavenly Sword sect and teach it to the disciples. Yilin is currently only a registered disciple and is not qualified to attend. But it's not important. Yilin has always liked to read, learn, and comprehend by herself. I heard from the two chief masters that he also has a senior brother. But the senior brother went out on a mission and has not returned for more than 10 years, so now he has only one disciple under the elder Chuan Gong, which is called the only disciple. When this matter was brought up at that time, Yilin was curious, what kind of mission can last more than 10 years? Are people still there? But the two chief masters did not answer this. They just said in unison and mysteriously, the secret must not be leaked. Translated, confidentiality. But that's fine. In the villa, there is a small library. There are many books inside. Although there is a simple triggering ban at the door of the library. But Yilin observed it for a few days and easily sneaked in. He took out more than 50 secret books in one go. Within the Tianjian sect, the types of secret books are numerous and complex, covering many disciplines. Simply summarized, it can be divided into alchemy, sword cultivation, magic techniques, weapon refining, sword formation, strange gates, and hexagram techniques. Yilin is a novice on the journey of cultivation, so there is no need to choose. The vast sea of books is full of unknown knowledge. He rubbed his palms together excitedly, moved out more than 50 books in one go, and found the pure tea room in the garden. Taking advantage of the black and white sheep's preaching time, Yilin read here. I heard from Jian Nanshan that the sermon was preached every month for 3 to 5 days. Thousands of monks from the sect sat motionless in the square. The scene was quite spectacular. 3 or 5 days later, Yilin was surprised when she heard this. This chi refining and meditation practice lasts for 10.5 days. Isn't this going to cause hemorrhoids? While complaining casually in his mind, Yilin moved the coffee table where the two elders drank tea to a corner in the tea room, cleared the space, and lined up 50 secret books horizontally and vertically. Looking at the books that were opened page by page, Yilin couldn't help but feel a trance in front of her eyes, which silently overlapped with the scenes in her memory. When was the last time you did this? Oh. 13 years ago. While in the clock tower. Yilin sighed softly, sighing at how time flies, and a light pattern of light appeared on his right wrist. Without the hanging ring, the stability of the supreme style spell has indeed been affected. To put it bluntly, I still don't have enough time. Yilin was depressed. As he spoke, Yilin slapped his chest with his right hand, skillfully entering an out-of-body state. That is, mental state. In his mental state, the passage of time slowed down, and he must take advantage of these 3 days to write down all the books in the black and white Air Yang library. Even if you don't understand it or don't know how to practice it, at least use your memory to write it down and then digest it slowly in the future. A Deng said that knowledge is a priceless treasure house, and there is no other priceless treasure. No one knew that a young man from somewhere else was like a hungry sponge, frantically absorbing all the knowledge he could see. 3 days later, Yilin reluctantly memorized the books in black and white Air Yang's library, word for word. It's quite difficult, to be honest. There are also many vague illustrations in it. The paths through which the breath flows are marked on it. It took Yilin a lot of effort to write them down one by one. Day 5. After the monthly evangelism meeting, Gong Yang Bai and Gong Yang Black walked home in the air, riding on colorful auspicious clouds. What they passed on this month was a profound sword manual. It was precisely because of its profoundness that it took 5 days. Day and night, they kept preaching, which consumed a lot of energy from Gong Yang Black and Gong Yang White. When they returned to their villa, they were both dumbfounded. The entire courtyard has a completely different style. Their new registered disciple, Yilin, was holding up a pair of small scissors obtained from somewhere, clicking here and there, pruning the careless flowers in the yard into various shapes. Some are like people, some are like birds, some are like clouds, some are like flowers, and some are like houses. Together, they look like a painting. A picture of men and women wandering in Unkai Park, surrounded by cranes. Gong Yang Bai, so. Gong Yang He, outrageous. Black and white Air Yang waited at the door for a long time, and after repeatedly confirming that this was his villa, he stepped in cautiously, thinking that he had entered the wrong door. Master, you are back. The obedient boy had a shy smile on his face. For a moment, the smile went straight into the black eyes of the male sheep and the white eyes of the male sheep. Under the sunlight, it made the two sheep's eyes swell and hurt. In the astonishment of the two sheep masters, Yilin explained with a smile, I have nothing to do these days. I looked at the flowers and trees in the courtyards of the two masters. I felt that the courtyards of the two masters were beautiful and picturesque, but a little messy. But the only drawback was that it lacked a bit of vitality, so I took the decision myself and trimmed the careless flowers in the courtyard. I used the cut petals to lay some patterns in the courtyard. I wonder if the two masters are satisfied. Yilin didn't say that they hadn't noticed yet. Not only was the careless flower beside the courtyard wall chopped into pieces, but the petals, which were said to last for 100 years, were actually spread out in strange patterns on the ground. The pattern is not symmetrical at first glance, but in detail, it is divided into several plates, and there is a sense of beauty between each plate that makes up for each other's imperfections. In the center, there is a path that leads directly to the chessboard, allowing the two of them to walk along the path paved with petals and reach the chess position in one step. Ram Black and Ram White have the same mind and think of the same thing. They didn't say anything, but they had a heated exchange in their hearts. But if others don't know whether it's pretty or not, why don't they know each other? Gong Yang He and Gong Yang Bai stared at each other for a long time, not knowing what to say. Is it alike? Or do you mean to reprimand me? After a quick compliment, both of them felt that they couldn't be proud of themselves. Not long ago, they were boasting in front of the new registered disciples that their preaching style was unique among the Tianjian sect. He never expected that within a few days, he would be slapped in the face by a new disciple. To be honest, it's not like they can't pull off this little trick with a simple blindfold. With a wave of your hand, anything more luxurious than this can be done. Can the blinding method be compared with the real kung fu of one knife and one cut? After a while, the two people who were staring at the new courtyard looked solemn at the same time. They stared at the new arrangement of purple petals on the floor. With some doubts, they said in the same voice. Tianxin Sword Formation. You are listening to novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 837. Yilin finally understood the promotion system within Tianjian sect. To make an analogy, it is like a modern large enterprise. No matter who it is, even if it is Princess Dakian, when she comes to the Tianjian sect, she will have to stay and work as a handyman disciple. It is said that a handyman disciple can be promoted automatically after working for only a few years. For example, Chen Bei has worked for a decade. Even the strongest handyman disciple is still a handyman. In the handyman class, if you perform well, you may be chosen by a senior member of the sect, and you can go to a certain department and become a registered disciple. As for the value of a registered disciple, Yilin already understood it on the first day. Gong Yang He took out a bunch of waist cards with his backhand. Each waist card had a corresponding number. He casually threw a piece to Yilin. There are numbers engraved on it, 5, 6, 8. The number of registered disciples is random. It all depends on the mood of the boss. It does not mean that there are really as many as 567 registered disciples in front of Yilin. The meaning of the registered disciple is, I will remember you first, perform well, and you can be promoted. If your performance is not good, we will be unhappy, and you can go back to work as a miscellaneous person. This is roughly how it works. From the named disciples up, there are the outer disciples. If you go to the outer door, you will have the opportunity to learn more advanced techniques and get more sufficient resources. When a Qi practitioner practices, what can he do if he just relies on naturally exhaling a little bit of spiritual energy? If you really want to practice to a higher level, spiritual stones, elixirs, and magic weapons are all indispensable. The outer disciples are promoted to the inner disciples. Inner disciples can basically be said to be the favorites of a certain elder. Unless they make any mistakes in principle, they can basically be said to be as stable as an old dog, waiting to retire. And it is said that among inner disciples, there is a higher level, personal transmission. As a direct disciple, each elder can only recruit one person at a time. Once the elder's time limit reaches or encounters any unexpected events, as long as the direct disciple is recognized by the headmaster, he can directly inherit the position of elder and reach the sky in one step. The peak of monks. Of course, sometimes the direct disciple may not live longer than the elder. There is also the possibility that the direct disciple will die in the middle and the elder will recruit another one. By the way, Jian Nanchun is currently an inner disciple. Belongs to the sect of the discipline elder. After Yilin understood the whole thing, she didn't have much idea. Even though he has been in this world for 13 years, so long that his memories of the real world are getting blurry, he has not forgotten that one day he will clap his hands, leave without taking anything, and embark on the cruel journey again. Find them and achieve yourself. 10 messages, 7 keys. Early morning. Yilin is very diligent in breathing every day. He opened his eyes and slowly exhaled a breath of turbid air from his mouth. The clear air rose, and then part of the spiritual energy dissipated from his pores and returned to the world of heaven and earth again. Yilin murmured to himself, and after vomiting, he couldn't help but think of the main mission personally issued to him in Xiao 11's first message. It's time to figure out the main story. Yilin has read one of Xioxi's 10 messages. One of the 7 keys has been found and is temporarily stored with Xia Xiaoman. He had previously confirmed by smashing the earth that the real power of the human emperor's seal could not be exerted unless it was the human emperor. If it is left in Xia Xiaoman's hands, it is just an official seal used by the emperor and cannot be used for other purposes. Yilin swiped her finger down, and the apostle panel full of garbled characters appeared in front of Yilin. After a quick check, Yilin closed the panel again. He didn't want to get any information from the apostle panel. Only by occasionally looking at it like this could he recall his identity as an apostle and not an insignificant little monk of Tianjian sect. Yilin took out the Jian Nanshun timer No. 2, then took out the Lin family's ancestral carpenter's knife, and made a slash on it. Yilin has been keeping this habit for more than half a year. If Jian Nanshun doesn't hit his face every day, he will feel uncomfortable all over. No, after pulling, Yilin felt relieved and smiled broadly. Another day worth looking forward to. Just when Yilin had hidden the carpenter's knife and Jian Nanshun timer No. 2, a sword light came from a distance and landed outside the garden. Yilin was stunned. This was really what he thought. Junior brother Lin. Jian Nanshun came in uninvited, with his hands behind his back and the breeze on his feet, smiling and saying hello to Yilin. Brother Jian. In the past, this guy would be reluctant to call him senior brother, but now when Yilin calls him, he becomes more beautiful, with the corners of his mouth raised and his eyes shining brightly. Junior brother Lin, are you getting used to staying in the preaching garden these days? Jian Nanshun obviously ignored him, and instead of talking about business, he cared about Yilin. Yilin sighed softly and waved his hand in front of Jian Nanshun. Senior brother Jian, we are not outsiders. If we have anything to say, speak directly. Junior brother Lin, can you feel the concern that senior brother has for junior brother Lin? Senior brother, I remember junior brother Lin very much. Upon hearing this, Yilin looked wary and quickly took a step back. Ahem, Jian Nanshun suddenly realized that his words just now seemed to be misunderstood. He coughed twice to cover up his embarrassment, and a natural and warm smile appeared on his face again. I heard that junior brother Lin this month, we are all practicing alone in the missionary garden. The morning light is very pleasant today. Why don't we take you to visit the fairy island? You see, my brother and I are riding the wind in the sky, traveling in the sky, and looking at the fairyland. Isn't it a great joy in life? As for Jian Nanshun, there is nothing wrong with him. He just likes to go around and save face. Yilin agreed. Jian Nanshun did not let the two of them crowd on his flying sword this time. He waved and made a seal, summoning 2 tamed cranes from the sky to carry the two of them and fly into the sky. These cranes are like buses in Tianjianmen, whoever comes first gets on. But you must at least have the qualifications of an outer sect disciple to be qualified to use the bus crane. The two drove the bus crane and flew slowly in the sky. Jian Nanshun seemed to really want to take Yilin shopping. Along the way, he explained to Yilin the use of every mountain peak and every suspended hill. Look, that's the Commandment Mountain. The tallest and brightest one is the Supreme Mountain. It is the place of spiritual cultivation of the headmaster. No one is allowed to enter except the elders. By the way, I wonder if the preacher elders have warned you that you must not exceed the height of the supreme mountain when flying in the Tianjian section. That one is Wenjian Mountain. There are countless flying swords from our ancestors on it. After you enter the inner gate, junior brother, you will be qualified to step into Wenjian Mountain and find your own flying sword. That one is Baiko Mountain. That one is Wanjuan Mountain. That is Mount Sumeru. That one is Yanmo Mountain. That one is Fangyuan Mountain. The two of them rode a crane and wandered in the sky. From time to time, a graceful female senior sister would look at Jian Nanchun with a coquettish smile. At the same time, many people expressed curiosity about the newcomer whom Jian Nanchun greeted so warmly. This place feels like a village to Yilin. Everyone who passes by looks familiar, living and working in peace and contentment, and concentrating on cultivation. It's pretty good. I'm not fighting against the world. Yilin rode the bus crane under her buttocks, feeling the comfortable and peaceful atmosphere brought to him by Tianjianmen, and couldn't help but sigh. That's natural. After entering the Tianjian sect, I realized that the worldly world, money, and beauty are all just floating clouds. What about senior sister Chao Rushuan? Junior sister is the guiding light that will never go out on my lonely journey of cultivation. Jian Nanchun thought for a while and made a rather earthy metaphor. To be honest, you still want to sleep with her. Yilin rolled her eyes but didn't say anything. While chatting, the two of them rode cranes and passed under Wanjuan Mountain one after another. This is the suspended fairy peak that Yilin has been eyeing for a long time and stepped on from a distance when he was in the handyman class. Taking the opportunity, Yilin pretended to be stupid and asked, "What is there in Wanjuan Mountain?" "Hey, junior brother, I don't know something. Wanjuan Mountain is one of our forbidden areas, and there are countless secret books handed down from ancient times. Around the immortal peak, there are terrifying restrictions set up by several elders. Once you get close, thousands of swords will be fired. No one can stop me, junior brother, the time to get started is still short, so don't go into these places by mistake. Thank you for the reminder, senior brother." Junior brother has his own sense of propriety. Yilin squinted his eyes and smiled, and agreed vaguely. This junior brother is so obedient. Jian Nanchun nodded secretly and gave Yilin a thumbs up in his heart. About an hour later, there were many fellow monks in the sky. Jian Nanchun took Yilin for a brief tour. When he almost returned to the mission garden on the main peak, he pinched the corner of his clothes and looked like he was hesitant to speak. Yilin looked at the other party and decided to give him some steps. "Senior brother Jian, today I have gained a lot of knowledge with you. If I need my help, I will go through fire and water without hesitation." When Jian Nanchun heard this, he was so excited that he trembled all over. He came closer, held Yilin's hand, and said in a trembling voice, "What a good junior brother." Next, Jian Nanchun began to talk about things unceremoniously. Infinity Throne. Author, Bai Yi Shueshi. Chapter 838. To put it bluntly, it was because of Chao Rushuan. Chao Rushuan goes out to purchase worldly supplies every year in the 12th lunar month when Dongsheng Shenzhou enters the cold winter. Even though Tianjian sect looks aloof and indifferent to the secular world, some necessary supplies can only be purchased from the secular world. This is also the reason why, although Tianjian sect does not appear often, there are still fragments of legends left in the world from time to time. Now that there is only half a year left before the 12th lunar month, what should you do, senior brother? Jian Nanchun shook his head and expressed his thoughts. Chao Rushuan, like Jian Nanchun, currently belongs to the inner disciples of Commandment Mountain and Commandment Hall. She lives in seclusion all day long, meditating in meditation. There were not many opportunities for Jian Nanchun to be alone with Chao Rushuan. For so many years, he had quietly looked at Chao Rushuan's back, swallowing longing for her in his heart. But Yilin's words that day seemed to activate some kind of switch in Jian Nanchun, and he gradually felt that he was in trouble. Did Chao Rushuan always go to sea alone in the past years? Yes, junior sister, she takes the initiative to go out to purchase supplies every 12th lunar month, without exception. It has been 10 years now. Yilin frowned, feeling a little strange. Judging from the information Jian Nanchun revealed from time to time, Chao Rushuan can be said to be the leader among the sect and the elite among the elites. Although Jian Nanchun and Chao Rushuan are both inner disciples at present, it seems that the headmaster is very fond of Chao Rushuan, and their weight is not the same. But going down the mountain to purchase supplies sounds like a chore for an outer disciple. Why was Chao Rushuan so proactive? To brush up your favorability? Yilin compared her feelings and found a suitable reason for the other party. If it were him, he would do the same thing. Yilin is the best way to increase favorability without risk. Yilin didn't think much about this. He looked up at Jian Nanchun's longing eyes and said lazily, in other words, you want to go down the mountain to do shopping with your junior sister and take the opportunity to sleep, no, take the opportunity to have a good relationship with your junior sister. Show off in front of junior sister, right? There was something wrong with Yilin's words. But Jian Nanchun was immediately surrounded by your junior sister, his face turned red and he was quite shy. He twisted on the spot for a while, coughed twice to moisten his throat, and did not object. After pretending for a long time, he finally nodded and praised, junior brother Lin is really sharp-eyed. He can't hide anything from junior brother. Then you have to fight for me. Junior brother has a low status and is not allowed to go to sea privately. Yilin stared blankly, thinking about how far she could achieve in Tianjian sect in the past 6 months, but she did not immediately refuse Jian Nanchun's request. At first glance, it was clear that Jian Nanchun had little experience and would not even ask for anything. After thinking about it, Yilin threw back a difficult problem to Jian Nanchun. When he entered, he already knew that there were terrifying restrictions around the immortal mountain of Tianjian section. Registered disciples and outer disciples were not allowed to break into the restrictions without the permission of the master, let alone venture into the world. Yilin raised this matter, meaning that I am not qualified to go out, and you have to solve this matter yourself. When Jian Nanchun heard Yilin's promise, how could he not solve Yilin's worries? He patted his pectoralis major and immediately promised that as long as Yilin was willing, he would find a way to take Yilin down the mountain with him. With his status as an elite inner disciple, it is not difficult to take a named disciple with him when he goes out to increase his knowledge and use it as experience and training. The matter was initially settled. Jian Nanchun rode the crane away happily. Yilin saw from a distance that Jian Nanchun was so happy that his thoughts were flying. He subconsciously grabbed the wings of the crane with both hands. The crane was flying crookedly in the air in pain, and there was always the risk of crashing. After Jian Nanchun left, Yilin and his 2 masters had gone to live happily ever after. They were not in the garden. They were bored. Yilin could only sit down and breathe. Life in Tianjian sect is actually extremely boring. Day after day, year after year, every disciple is practicing, seeking longevity, attaining the truth, and hoping for freedom. Regarding the pursuit of the monks, Yilin held a neutral opinion and was non-committal. This kind of boring life can only be lived occasionally. What's the point of staying there for 10 years, 100 years, or even longer? He just couldn't understand it. But people's pursuits cannot be generalized, and people's joys and sorrows cannot be sympathized with. Yilin has never said these long words to people. How can deep-rooted ideologies and living habits be changed by just a few words? In Yilin's opinion, the Qi master's training method is very inefficient. A person with mediocre qualifications can take 1 year to receive Qi and 10 years to refine Qi. If he can form a golden elixir within 50 years, he can be regarded as a small success. But even if he has formed a golden elixir and reached the level of Jian Nan Chun, Yilin is still confident that he can shoot him down with just one shot, no matter how many methods he uses. According to the analogy of the apostle's strength, we can roughly deduce such a relationship. The monks in the Naki stage are slightly stronger than ordinary athletes. A monk in the chi refining stage who has reached the pinnacle of cultivation is equivalent to an apostle stuck in a layer of lux. As for the golden elixir stage, it is equivalent to an extraordinary apostle who has broken through the limits of human beings and unlocked the restrictions. Although there are many differences in the abilities of monks and apostles, upon careful comparison, many similarities can still be found. After all, when the apostle uses 11 paradise to travel through the heavens and the world, he will naturally encounter various different strengthening methods. But 11 paradise is like a transfer station that integrates all different types of enhancement types or abilities. But the efficiency of chi refining is too slow. I heard people say that by breaking through to the golden elixir stage, human lifespan can be greatly increased and can live for hundreds of years. But lifespan, to the apostles, it is the most useless thing. No matter how long your lifespan is, you must have a way to live to enjoy it. If you can't live that long, no matter how long your lifespan is, it's just a decoration. You can't just stay in a corner like a turtle, motionless until you die of old age, right? It is precisely because of various reasons that Yilin has no interest in his own cultivation. Instead, he wants to read more books, extract the essence of this knowledge, remove the dross, and then combine it with his own knowledge to create new ones. Come in tricks. Only knowledge lasts forever. After the vomiting was over, Yilin opened her eyes and said the words Adeng often said. Yilin was still sitting on the soft futon, feeling the breath in her body. The breath was weak and thin, better than nothing, and the progress was slow. According to the evaluation method here, this chi volume is only equivalent to the 5th level of NHE. It seems that I shouldn't waste time on cultivation in this life. Yilin's mind started to get active and she was thinking about other things. With a flick of his hand, he set up a barrier to isolate spiritual consciousness. The monk's spiritual consciousness is equivalent to a kind of mental fluctuation. Yilin only needs to slightly adjust the surrounding wave frequency to make it more chaotic, and she can effectively isolate most of the spiritual consciousness. Simple and easy. After getting ready, Yilin shook his left and right wrists, and a circular light array and a square light array appeared in his hands respectively. He continued to deduce the key points of fusion of freedom.